I had this like very awakening moment within like one particular yoga class that I went to high. It sparked this excitement within me of like, oh my gosh, like God is actually within me. Not only like I had only perceived God as like an outside force, but that was the first time I felt like this visceral feeling of this like power and interconnection with me and everything. And like this illusion of separation really disintegrated and it excited me to want to share that gift. So then that's when it started guiding me down a path of guiding meditations with smoking.
Welcome to Higher Spirits, a podcast of elevated cannabis conversations with me, your host, Lexi Kafka. Here we explore the powerful intersections of cannabis, spirituality, and mindfulness to better understand how to cultivate a conscious relationship with this plant. We journey with thought leaders and experts who bring a unique perspective on how cannabis connects us deeper to ourselves, our history, and the planet. Hello, plant fam. Welcome back to Higher Spirits. And oh my gosh, does it feel so good to say that? It's been a while, a couple of months, much longer than I expected, but I am so happy to be back here with you and feeling so energized. Where was I? Honestly, I was in a practice of honoring the feminine, which is what this podcast is all about. This podcast was never meant to be about grinding out content or growing a huge audience. It's about learning to live in tune with the natural cycles of doing and resting from the wisdom of the cannabis plant. And over the past few summer months, I simply wasn't feeling called to share. And instead of forcing it, I let myself lean into that pause. And this pause became its own kind of medicine and practice for me. Because trust me, I say practice because it wasn't easy. This entire time, there was a ton of negative self-talk, like I was being a slacker or I was letting people down. But now with this energy of harvest season and after this pause, I'm feeling so much more energized and ready to share again. So today, I'm really excited to bring to you a conversation with Darrien Divinity. She's the founder of Marijuana Meditations, and she's a guide that leads meditation and sound experiences crafted specifically with the cannabis plant. And honestly, from the moment we connected, I felt such a natural kinship with her. We've definitely received very similar downloads from this plant, and our spiritual paths parallel in many ways. So being in a conversation with her kind of felt like sitting down with a spiritual sister. And I'm so impressed by the depth of her wisdom and her spiritual journey, especially at such a young age. She's a force. And she carries wisdom beyond her years. You'll see what I mean as we dive into the episode, where we discuss a lot of things like her story growing up in a strict Christian household and how her spirituality really evolved and blossomed because of cannabis, and why she believes cannabis is the perfect tool to help people learn meditation, and also into bigger topics like the racist history of the word marijuana and why she received backlash for using it, but chose to anyways to reclaim the word for the Black and Brown communities who have been so disproportionately harmed by cannabis prohibition and regulation over the past century. And the best part of all of this is that I get to be with Darrien in person because I'm thrilled to share that we are both facilitating at the Moon Made Harvest Retreat that I'm helping host October 2nd through 5th in Humboldt County. And this is going to be an intimate gathering of women on the land with harvest ceremonies, hands-on harvest experience with the plants, yoga, meditation, sauna, hot tub, and deep connection and reverence with the plant. So if you feel called to learn more, check out my Substack for details on how to join us. And honestly, all I can say is it's going to be amazing. I personally go up to Moon Made Farms every year for harvest simply because it's so magical. It's such a amazing time to commune with the plant and with the land. I've learned so much about regenerative agriculture and just deepened my relationship with the plant over harvest. So I'm very excited to share this with others this year. So if you want to connect with Darrien beyond the retreat, you can find her on Instagram at Darrien Divinity or Marijuana Meditations. Or you can also find her on YouTube, where she has amazing meditations that she's recorded and shared with her community at Marijuana Meditations. I love this conversation, and I know you will too. It's so good to be back with you guys. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's get higher. Hello. Hi, Darrien. I'm so excited to have you here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Higher Spirits, where we explore all the amazing potential that cannabis has to bring us back into our bodies, to connect us with ourselves, and to connect us with the planet. And today we have a super special guest that I am so excited to chat with and record this conversation because we've had an amazing conversation organically. So we get to just share this in a more formal way now. We have Darrien Divinity, who is a incredible facilitator in the Southern California area and guide with cannabis as a master plant teacher. And I'm so excited to dive into your journey with the plant, your offerings, and your personal spiritual journey as Darrien Divinity. So, Darrien, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on your podcast. Like, from what I know about you so far, I feel like there's a lot of synergy and synchronicity. So I feel like we were bound to have this conversation at some point, and I'm happy that our paths have aligned us here.
Absolutely, so much synergy. We were cracking up on the phone when we first chatted. I was like, "Wait, what? It was a cosmic giggle."
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and like there's people where, especially with working with plant medicines and working with cannabis, you're like, wow, what one might say we have a lot in common. I truly think it's the path of the plant, and we're getting the
Right.
same messages and the same downloads.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into some of our synergy and some of the amazing things that you do and perspectives that you have and the way that you help and support people. So I would love to just start with your personal spiritual journey. So how did your spiritual journey begin, and what if there are any like tentpole experiences that really helped you shape the person you are today as Darien Divinity?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that it started with my upbringing being raised extremely Christian, but I feel like I had a unique experience within that because my mom actually went through like a Christian awakening when I was in second grade. So I remember kind of living more of like a normal lifestyle. And then all of a sudden she got like super fixated on like reading the Bible and diving into her spiritual journey. So it was very much like in the forefront of like, what is my relationship to God? But from also a very young age, I knew that I was like sexually fluid, that some type of feelings were like coming up that were not heteronormative. And I felt like this like conflict of where I was like, okay, I feel this essence of God, but I also am feeling this disconnect. Genuinely, even from a little girl, I was like, in my heart, I know that God loves me unconditionally, but why is it that this like God that I'm being taught about is that like they would condemn me? So I remember like really trying to figure out like how to navigate this. And I would pray every night and like ask God to speak to me after I would pray. And sometimes I would feel like I would get messages, but I never felt like that same connection to God that like my mom had. And then I remember even I was like, okay, I'm going to read the whole entire Bible. And then hopefully by the time I'm at the end of the Bible, I'll feel this like deep connection. And when I tell you, like, even as I got older, I would come home like high, drunk, like having just done wild stuff. And I would still read a little bit of the Bible every night. And I never got through the whole thing. I maybe got through like half, but I still never felt that like spark of connection, you know? And then I just like had always kind of like felt called to some type of like spiritual realm. Like I remember being really fascinated by like mandalas when I was younger, like dream catchers or yoga. But my mom, she was so religious that she was like, I'm not taking you to a yoga class because I don't know what type of like yoga poses they're doing to like worship some type of like Hindu god or something like that. So it wasn't until I was like able to drive and like work that I brought myself to a yoga class. And that was definitely like a pivotal moment in my journey where I started to actually like feel my own essence, like feel this connection to my body and my breath. And it was also around this time where I had started smoking and I just kind of started like experimenting with like, okay, what does it feel like if I go to school high, like college high? What happens if I go to a workout high or yoga class high? And that was like really when things started like shifting for me and I started to feel this like deeper connection to God.
Wow. What an incredible story. And I can also deeply empathize with that because I think would also say I grew up not very religious, but deeply embedded in the church. I grew up Greek Orthodox, so it wasn't necessarily the religious part of it, but like everything we did was through the church. It
Yeah.
was like preschool through like first grade, Sunday school, basketball camp, summer camp. Everything was through the church. So I had like this like cerebral concept of God, but
Mhm.
I never really felt that personal connection.
Yeah.
And it was definitely through my more mindful use of cannabis, I started to really feel a connection to something bigger,
Yeah.
much bigger than myself. So, yes, what a beautiful thing that this plant can do. That's incredible. That's incredible. So, like, that's the beginning of your story. So, what is your relationship with cannabis now, and how does it continue to support you in your journey?
My relationship with cannabis now has developed so much, and it's so fascinating to just like take a moment to look back on the timeline of my relationship with cannabis because pretty much like I had this like very awakening moment within like one particular yoga class that I went to high. And from there, it sparked this excitement within me of like, oh my gosh, like God is actually within me. Not only like I had only perceived God as like an outside force, but that was the first time I felt like this visceral feeling of this like power and interconnection with me and everything. And like this illusion of separation really disintegrated. And it excited me to want to share that gift with my friends whenever we would smoke. So then that's when it started guiding me down a path of like guiding meditations with smoking. And even within my own practice, when I would smoke by myself, I would just feel called to like close my eyes and see what messages were coming forth. And so that was like almost probably like 8 years ago or so that like my personal practice with like combining cannabis and meditation really started. And then I started to post them on YouTube. And then that's when more of like the world was starting to be like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. I need this. Please keep making more of these videos. And then that's when I was like, okay, I feel like there's a calling. Like, I feel like that was the first time I felt like I had a calling and I couldn't ignore it. And then I started hosting them in person. And now I've been like 3 years deep into the practice of like full blown marijuana meditation LLC website, like events, retreats. And it's grown a lot. And even within like the actual like programming of the sessions, it's developed in a way where I'm constantly trying to remember like the original intention of what's calling me into this. So it's not just like turnkey. It's more so of like really being present with myself and the herbs and the people that I'm also meditating with to see like what's coming forth because we're always like evolving. So I feel like that's kind of where it is now, but I see it continuing to grow.
Beautiful. Amazing. Would you say, like, how would you describe your personal spiritual practice? Like, do you have a ritual? Is there a certain time that you use the plant? Or are there times where you don't feel supported by the plant? I just love to share everyone's kind of like personal, especially as facilitators and guides.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've personally found that people just think that I'm, like, getting high all the time, and, sometimes there's chapters of life where I've needed that, but I love to ask how your personal spiritual practice looks like right now in life.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think that that is also a big misconception that people place on me as well is that since I am in the cannabis industry, I'm smoking all day, every day, which is definitely not the case. I would say my practice usually looks like me smoking like some type of like herbal blend and stretching that out for like over like the course of like 2 to 3 days, I would say. And I usually will smoke at the later end of the day, like when I've gotten like all the things done that I feel like I need to really prioritize. And then it's kind of more so like of a reward, also like a reset reflection moment where I like sit. It's like a moment of like self-care where I'm sitting with myself and like really reflecting on the day, what's coming up for me, what I may need to release. But that's also not always the case either. I have like my own ebb and flows with it as well. Even though I try my best to practice conscious cannabis consumption, there are moments within my journey where I will smoke more recreationally. And I hold space for that as well, you know? But then there are also moments where, like, say, for example, I will be invited to do like a cannabis photo shoot. And I'm smoking way more than I typically would on my own. And I'm like, whoa, definitely can feel the feeling of like overconsumption. And it even more so solidifies and like reminds me the importance of conscious consumption and even like micro consumption and how much more powerful and medicinal that can be than completely over consuming.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna pull some threads here. Yes, over-consuming. What does that mean? I think it's really specific person to
Mm,
person,
yeah.
and like you said, chapter to chapter, and, like, yes, hold space for recreational use. Sometimes your intention can be just to laugh your ass off and have a great time.
Right. Right.
Uh, but I would love to hear more about the herbal blends,
Yeah.
because that actually is how I really started. I mean, I've smoked weed for a long time in my life, but it was very purely recreational and it was really facilitated by other people. I'd kind of just jump on. But when I had started cultivating my own practice was when I discovered herbal blends. And I've always been attracted to the herbal realm. And I was like, whoa, I can smoke peppermint. I can smoke
Yes.
lavender. And I found that when I mixed it with these other herbs, not only did it taste good, not only did it alter the effects, but it reduced the potency, which completely changed my
Mhm,
relationship to the plant. So I would
mhm.
love to hear your story, your herbal blend, like perspective. Do you make your own? Why do you use it? What do you like to put in there?
Yeah, I love that you've been on the herbal journey as well too. It's so fun. Mine started when it was like around the time where I had started smoking. I had a friend that had like all of these herbs, and she was like, "Yeah, you know, you can smoke like all these different herbs," and that was like where my mind was blown because I'm also like a young, like early college student smoker. I don't have that much money, so I'm like, "Oh, I can stretch my weed out with these herbs. Okay, good to know." So that's when it kind of really started for me. And then and I was just more so, like, using it in my own practice. I, like, share it with my friends, like, back in my bong days, I would, like, sprinkle it on there, and I feel like it was always, like, fun, kind of, like, almost cocktail-esque way of enhancing the herbs, and then, but I didn't really start taking it more seriously until I hosted a retreat in El Salvador, and I really wanted to provide, like, a marijuana meditation experience, but I couldn't provide cannabis like at that part in that part of the world. So I was like, okay, I want to still do some type of smoke sesh. I'll just do herbal blends only. And then the girls at the retreat loved it and they were like, Darrien, like you need to start doing this for real. And so then that's when I started incorporating it more into my sessions. And once I started doing like in more in person events, I would always provide non THC joints. So I do 4 different blends, and so one of them is lucid lavender, and it's lavender and mugwort, and then I have rose peace with rose, mullein, damiana, Egyptian dream with blue lotus, mullein, and damiana, and then pure spearmint, which is just pure spearmint. And that's been so fun. I usually when I provide them at the meditations, I'll just, like, isolate those 4 blends, but I've been getting more into vending and providing like flower bar experiences for events. And there it's more of a customizable experience where I'll have people smell the blends and then tell me like which ones they're feeling drawn to. And then we'll combine a little bit of rose and spearmint or whatever they're feeling, or all 4 of the blends. And then I'll be like, do you want to add some cannabis into this or not? And that makes it a really fun way to just like, I feel like enhance any event, but also like enhance your awareness. Cause I feel like they all have their own herbal benefits. People will often ask me, like, okay, well, like, what's the effect? And I'm like, the effect is going to be slight, just similar to as if you were to drink it in a tea, but it's going to be subtle, but it tastes really good. I feel like it's an aromatherapy. But also, I love the fact that you're microdosing cannabis with it when you do add it in there. Yeah, because for me, it's more so like the oral fixation. Like I love
Being able to actually smoke a whole joint and not be on the floor.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's talk more about flower bars and herbal bars because this is something like I started to dip my toes into a couple years ago, and it was super organic as well. People were just like, "You need to do this." They would be like,
Yeah,
we have a cocktail bar, but would you be able to come like roll joints?"
yes,
Yes, but, like, also we're gonna include other herbs. In those conversations I had for the events that I did, I mean, people not only were they mind blown that you could smoke certain things like
yeah,
lavender and rose petals and spearmint,
yeah.
I think it really helps recontextualize for people that weed is an herb.
Right.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
our Yeah, I think we lose sight of that because it's everything's packaged in, like, like, neon pink things with, like, melting puppies on the front.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, when you put it in a beautiful floral arrangement, we'll call it, it brings it, like, back down to its, like, earthly essence. The world needs more of this. I mean, I personally, like, I wanna go to a party and have an herbal bar
Yeah.
next to a cocktail bar all the time.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's listening to this, hire Darrien. We need more flower bars in the world, especially in California, because we have the most incredible flower.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
You still do the flower bars?
I mean, I will if I'm asked. It's something that I
Yeah.
was like, I could put some effort and oomph behind this. And I thought about
Mhm.
it for a moment. Like I looked and there's like a cannabis wedding expo. And I was like,
Right.
that would be a cool place to go do this. So I put like a very minor amount of thought into it. And a different project like just took me away from it. But I want to see more of it. And if
Mhm.
anyone ever, like I did one at my sister's wedding. That
Yeah.
was so fun.
Oh, I
So
love
I've done things like that, but it's not something I'm pursuing at the moment.
that. I understand. I got you.
Yeah.
I'll I'll uphold it for
Yeah. Like I said, we just need more of that. And it's like a fun mix between mixology and apothecary and herbalism. I
yes.
love that you got, again, downloads from the plant. Mama
Mhm.
Boswell speaking to both of us. Here we
Mhm.
go. Amazing. Amazing. And so when you're doing will you walk us through like what a meditation class or experience with marijuana meditations is like?
Yeah, definitely. So my events are usually 2 hours, and the first, like, 15, 20 minutes, I allow for just, like, free flow, natural networking to occur, and then we go into a community activation, and this is an integral part of my events because when it comes to incorporating cannabis into like a group setting, especially with strangers, I think that that has the ability to potentially heighten somebody's like anxiety or feeling like they don't know, maybe like an anchor person. Because I also a lot of people will come to the event solo, which I feel like it's a great event to come to solo. But I think that it's so important to really get to know who is in the room. Like there's so many events that happen, right? But I feel like there's not enough like genuine heart to heart conversations that are happening. So I really try to facilitate a moment for people to open their hearts, open their minds, and really get present with potentially meeting their new best friend or a business partner or romantic partner, you know? So I've been doing these community activations where I'll have people stand in two lines and then one line will close their eyes and then the other line will go and sit in front of somebody new. And then I have them like switch. So they're each meeting like 2 to 3 new people and I'll pose a couple of questions. And this is something that has also naturally developed because I used to just pose a question and let them free flow answer it. But what I noticed is that sometimes people would completely talk the whole entire time and then the other person would never have a moment to answer. So then I started incorporating what's considered as like meditative dyads, where it's like a meditation conversation. And so what I'll do is I'll tell them, like, okay, line one, you all are just the listeners. And line two, you all are the answers for 3 minutes. And if you're in your listening energy, I want you to see how it feels to hold space for the person that's sharing their answer with you. How does it feel for their words to enter into your mind through your ears? Notice if you feel like resonance or just like what shows up in your body. See if you can release like your internal chatter of what you're going to say back to them and just be present with them. See how much you can genuinely hold space for this person, trying your best to not interrupt them, right? Because your time will come to be able to share your answer. And then if you're in the answering energy, really see what it feels like to just like pour out without feeling like there's like no goal necessarily. Just try to talk for as long as you can. See, I think that a lot of times when you give people enough time to actually answer something, they pull something outside of themselves that they may have not known was there. Because most of the time we're getting cut off by somebody or we're like pausing ourselves to give space for the other person to share. And I don't think that there's enough moments where we allow ourselves to really like divulge the fullness of our thought. Yeah, I try to like really create that space for people to be like, okay, what does it feel like to actively listen? What does it feel like to speak from the heart and get my whole entire thought out. So that's how we start the sessions.
Is that before you have, like, your little plant ritual where you smoke?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah, so
Yeah,
then by
connect.
the time we end that, people are already like they a lot of times they don't wanna stop talking, and I'm like, "All right, time for the smoke sesh." And so, yeah, by then I feel like it feels like a sense of community, and then we go into, a sacred smoke sesh circle. Everybody sits in a circle, and then I'll have a tray with herbal offerings, cannabis offerings, and then I'll pass them around. And there's Moon Maid on the tray with some herbal joints, and then I'll ask them to share, to just like wait until everybody has their joint. So then that way we can go through like a sensory activation before even lighting up. And within this, I encourage people to really like open up all of their senses. So it's not just like, okay, I have my drink and I'm just about to light it up. Like, let's take a moment, be slow. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it feel like in my hands? Like, what does it really mean to hold this plant and this power within my palms and before I'm even going into it? And then from there, taking a moment to pay homage for the journey that it even took for these herbs to get into my hand. Like it had to go through this whole life cycle. It had to go through multiple hands of being trimmed, packaged, driven down from humble, like even just the journey of it going around in the tray and the fact that they chose that specific one. And then also thinking about their own journey in life and how they even got to the event. And now that they're there, like, okay, now what? Now sit with yourself. What do I feel right now? And what am I calling in this plant to provide for me? What is my intention for going into this herb? Like, you know, so then once we do that, then I encourage everybody to share their intentions with the group. And then it's kind of like popcorn style usually, because I never want to pressure anybody to do anything. Like I really try to create safe spaces for my events so that people can just come as they are. If they want to share a bunch or if they want to share nothing, like that's okay. And so a lot of times people will share their intentions and other people will be like, yes, like you stole the words out of my mouth. So a lot of times it's even just hearing somebody's intention I feel like is a powerful way to go into a smoke sesh. And then once everybody is like kind of shared most of their intentions, we light up, we smoke for a little bit, and then the smoking portion is actually very short within like the whole grand scheme of the event. And then we go into a meditation and a sound bath, and that's usually like 45 minutes. So I have like 7 crystal sound bowls and the rain sticks and some like wind chimes, and I'm like intuitively guiding the meditation throughout the session as well. So they're never scripted. Like I don't know what's going to show up, but I feel like the people that come to the events are like a reflection of what the energy is being mirrored that comes out through me. So I always like pray and ask to be like a vessel of love to continue to like be an effortless flow. And yeah, and then afterwards I open up space for people to share their experiences as like a way to kind of close off the ceremony, and then we wrap it up.
Beautiful. I cannot wait to experience one of these. I've just seen pictures and videos of you in your fairy state around, just like while people are laying with all of your crystal bowls and instruments, and it looks divine, absolutely divine. So you're definitely living up to your name.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
curious because I like the question gets asked a lot. What do you, when someone asks you why to use weed with meditation, how does it make it better? What's your
Mhm.
like quick elevator pitch for the combination?
Ooh, I feel like I picture meditation and cannabis as like a Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap within the benefits that they provide from the relaxation, imagination, reflection, healing, right? So I feel like within my journey, I just noticed how much I was able to go within myself from smoking and meditating versus if I'm just like meditating sober. I think that life is a meditation, essentially. I think that just like really bringing presence into whatever you're doing is a form of meditation. But I find that combining cannabis with it, it helps you to alleviate a lot of like the external mental chatter that goes on. And I feel like hones in on who you really are so that it's easier to see yourself from that insightful space. So, and it just like relaxes your body a lot more and has your mind like open to visualizing what's going on inside of your body. I feel like your senses are more open. So you're going to just like receive the fullness of the meditation and more of a like sensory activation rather than smoking sober. I think meditating sober is great too, but It's just combining another element. And I feel like something else that was really calling me to this work is that I see a lot of like mushroom or ayahuasca ceremonies where that I love that, but I feel like cannabis is such a accessible plant medicine that we can have a whole spiritual experience with that within itself.
Amplify that from the freaking rooftops. Is such an accessible medicine is the people's plant. It is so it truly can be a gateway to these other realms. And for me, it wasn't actually until I started to step more into the plant medicine world and sitting with journeys with psilocybin or with Aya or with other medicines that I was like, wait, why aren't we doing this with cannabis? Why are we
Right.
smoking this in like weird behind closed doors? There's there's not, we're not taught any ritual around it. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a fan of everything you're doing, but I think that's so important. And I love that you're bringing awareness to that. It's beautiful. And I'm sure it's shifting a lot of people's internal landscapes in a great way. But I'm curious, what kind of meditation do you do? Is there like a certain type of meditation that you study or practice or teach?
No, there's really not. So I wish that I could go back to like my early meditation days and like get a meditation for myself because it was so just like broad and I feel like I was getting like super into like the playfulness of meditation. And I remember going on a lot of like kind of like internal journeys of like going to the moon and like going through rainforests and stuff like that. Whereas now I feel like I've seen a shift happen where it's more so it's always been intuitive based, and then I did go and get a certification for meditation because I was like, let me see how deep I can get into this. But even within that, it's been such a personal relationship where I find that I go really deep into like cellular levels and like atom levels and nuclear and then out. Like I feel like I see a lot of like reflection of like the internal world reflecting like the external universe and then disintegrating the lines between those, between that space. I feel like I wouldn't have like I would say that the meditation practice that I practice or that I guide is very intuitive, but I feel that there's a lot of room for personal interpretation of what can come up within the meditation.
Great. That's beautiful. I love to hear that. It's very feminine perspective. It seems like I know there's many meditation practices that are very dogmatic and in their masculine. I had guests come and talk on this podcast who are like deeply entrenched in the Buddhist tradition, and we talk about how the yeah, if you go to like a Vipassana, there's like a level of masculine structure to that. So which I think is incredible. That practice is ancient and has so much wisdom. But
Sure.
cannabis is a very feminine plant. So it's great that you're pairing it with a more fluid, intuitive, gentle practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
amazing. Okay, so you mentioned Moon Maid.
Yeah.
For anyone's listening to this podcast, it's basically like a walking billboard for Moonlight. Um, and we connected on our own, and then Tina also had nudged both of us to connect because
Right.
we both teach with Moonmaid. So I would love to know why you are drawn to her, that the way that she cultivates. Why are you specific about the plant that you use in class? I mean, you invite
Mm-hmm.
me all over. So can you just talk more about your intention with using that specific type of flower?
Yes, absolutely. Moon Maid and Tina, they have a special place in my heart. Prior to really getting like super connected to Moon Maid, I would have different like cannabis brands sponsor each month of meditations. And so after doing this for like 2 years with like so many different brands, I tried a lot of different flower and I just continue to always go back to Moon Maid. And I was just like, there's something about this flower that feels so special. Like even from my first touch point with Moon Maid, Tina was so lovely and like welcoming and just like I felt like there was just like this deeper connection with her. Because even when we met, she was like, let's sit down, like have a conversation. Whereas other brands would be like, okay, yeah, I love what you're doing. I'll just send you something. And there wasn't that like heart to heart connection with like who's actually growing the flower and what their story is, why they're into it, you know? So, and one of my good friends in the cannabis industry, the ganja guru, Roger, he was the one that first like made Moon Made into my awareness and was like, Darrien, like, this is the best, this is the cleanest flower, this is all organic. And so it was after hearing it from Roger that I like messaged Tina, and but he had already shared some of the flower with me. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, this is I need to see what this is about. And then yeah, after smoking her flower, it's just like I honestly have become so like what's the word? Like loyal, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Very loyal to her flower because it just I feel like I can feel, smell, taste the not only the intentionality of it, but the cleanness, the actual high itself feels a lot more expansive as well. So I feel like Moonmade just has my heart, and my Moonmade has my heart for real. So I messaged Tina. She had already like sponsored a couple of things, and I was like, "Look, I really want to get even more like integrated within Moonmade because I'm passionate about providing people with this quality and this level of flower. So that reason more dispensaries out in LA and San Diego. So I never really saw myself as like a salesperson, honestly. But with this, it doesn't even feel like I'm being a salesperson. I'm literally just like, look, like you need to carry this flower because it is the best. So I'm excited to continue to grow with her and to continue to have them on the tray passed around in the smoke sessions and just like spread the love that really comes from that plant.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? When you smoke
It really is.
is different. I mean, for anyone listening, it's sun grown in the soil outdoors. It's not grown inside. It's not just living soil. It's grown in the earth and it's grown regeneratively and biodynamically. So this is like the highest standards of growing anything. And most people in the cannabis industry are not growing it that way. Actually, most cannabis is sprayed with chemicals and pesticides and grown inside and really stressed out. And cannabis is a plant medicine. The way you grow it is incredibly important. The energy in which it's grown will come up when you consume it. It's the energy that you're putting in your body. And Moon Made is the utmost highest energy. It's also clean. You're not going to get chemicals and pesticides. You're not going to get heavy metals. Yeah, there's like the spiritual component of it. And then there's also just the like, hey, people, do
Yeah.
you wanna be consuming scary pesticides, smoking them, and having it combust in your lungs? We
Right.
already have enough shit in this world that we have to worry about. Like, we have so
Right.
much control over what weed we smoke, when we're going to a dispensary. Yeah, it blows my mind. I love that you're also going to dispensaries because they're so important in the ecosystem of the world. They're like the touch point between right? They're like the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
most of them don't carry sun-grown. Most of them don't know what that is even.
Right.
So it's important work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I feel like similar to you, I feel like it's like a mission that is just like embedded within this life's experience and it just
Yeah.
feels like this nudge, this pull to be like, this is what I feel like I need to do.
It feels really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
does because I hate when I hear people are like, "Weed makes me super anxious," or "Gives me a terrible headache," or "I have crazy paranoid scary thoughts." And I'm like,
Mhm.
right? It's like you would think about it with like alcohol or anything, even like a cereal or any food. It's like
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
eat something, it's gonna give you a really bad stomachache. What are the ingredients? How was it made?
That's so
No, Fruit Loops are not the same as a bowl of fruit.
yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I feel really passionate about it. I think it's the best reflection of the plant and how it should be grown as just a standard. So I love that you're supporting it. We need more amazing women supporting Tina.
We do. We do. I'm always talking about her. I'm always talking about her and like trying to just like make people aware of Moon Maid and Tina like wherever I go.
Me too. I was just on her farm 2 weeks ago. I'm like, this place is so important.
Oh, I need to go visit the farm.
I know I'll have to get you up there for harvest. It's a pretty incredible experience. Yeah. Okay, I had a question that was sparked when you started to talk about honoring the long journey of the plant in your
Mhm.
class. So, yes, there's the long journey and the fact that it takes months and months and months to grow this, and then we have to harvest it and trim it and cure it. then we bring it from up north and down here and you smoke it. But if we zoom out a little bit, there's also a really long history of the cannabis plant historically. And a big part of that is a really dark and complicated history, especially in the States with Black and Brown communities, and then specifically also in queer communities.
Right.
And I would love to hear, because I know you talk about this a lot and you do specific work around it. So I would love to hear, how are ways, like what's important, like what messages do you want people to know?
Mhm.
And how do you think we can kind of honor the legacy of the wrongs that have been done and create a more inclusive and reparative space, especially in wellness, because wellness is pretty white.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for posing this question. So it's really interesting. So a little backstory. When I had first started smoking, I was always drawn to like referring to the plant as marijuana. Like that was just like my go-to word. Yeah, you were gonna ask about this? And I had like no awareness of really anything within the cannabis industry at all. My only awareness was that it was demonized and that like, the whole dare propaganda and just the couch lock girl commercial. So I felt like within seeing that, I felt like there was already like that embedded like paranoia. And then even just like I would say my reference point of just having like when you see like Rastafari, like or Jamaican people, like they're always paired to like smoking. And I remember growing up in like I grew up in a very, very like white, barely any diversity like in San Diego. So I didn't want, and there was a long time of me like trying to like assimilate to white culture. And I didn't want people to associate me with what I would consider like the less desirable like stereotypes associated with Black people. And I felt like maybe like some shame within that, like at the very beginning of my journey, like before I had even like found pairing cannabis with meditation. But when I go back to look at videos of myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just like my favorite thing to do is smoke a little marijuana. And then I had posted a video on YouTube, my very first like marijuana meditation on YouTube. I just called it that because it was like the MM, right? I'm like, oh, that sounds cute, you know, and and then as I started really like getting into the practice, I started doing my research on it. And then that's when I started to see like the word, like where the word marijuana even stemmed from. And so basically like it came from like white people trying to demonize cannabis by like trying to call it something that sounded like more ethnic. And hemp was like used widely and cannabis was used widely before it was demonized. But then once they started seeing that it was affecting like their plastic industry and like their pharmaceutical industry, they were like, absolutely not. And we need to have some type of marginalized group to pin this on. So we're going to call it marijuana and say that Black people are raping and like the Mexicans are killing people and all of this. And you still see, and then I was like, okay, wow, like I had no idea that that's where the word even came from. And I honestly like I had to like take a long time to think like, okay, do I still want to call this marijuana? Because I have had, like say I have had backlash around the name for sure. And it's been like this like internal battle of like, okay, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? But I have decided to keep the name because I feel like within just an evolving world, we are going to like the word marijuana is going to always be around in one way or another. So I would rather be able to have a positive representation of what this plant can be because at the end of the day, it's also just a plant. This is not like a person that we're talking about. This is an energy, this is an essence. And I want to be able, when people think about the word marijuana, I don't want them to associate it with marijuana is the gateway drug that's going to like harm the youth. I want them to think automatically pair marijuana meditations. So I'm using it as a way to rewire people's awareness of what this plant is because I feel that when we pair those words together, it's harder to demonize that it's something that can be detrimental to our society. And I feel like it's also reminding people that it is a plant medicine. Because when I see the word marijuana used in like society nowadays, I see it more so used in like the news or like policies or it's being demonized still. So I'm like, if it's going to be used, I want to be a positive force within that. And I think that that is also a way that's like reclaiming the power of it for Black and Brown communities, as well as just like reframing how people perceive it as well. But I would say that the best way that people can help to also like reframe that is by buying from Black and Brown growers and like really doing your research to see like, okay, who's the owner of this dispensary? Is there a Black owned dispensary or Black managed dispensary that I can go to versus this other one that is owned by a bunch of white men? Let me just do a little bit more digging to see who I really want to pour my dollar into. Buying social equity brands, buying like from women, like really allowing yourself to be mindful as to where you're putting your money into the plant, as well as also talking about it with your friends and within your community too.
So important. So many important messages there. I love thought when I had the similar thought when I saw that it was called marijuana meditation. Like I'm like, there's no way this girl's way too like on her like you're way too tuned to not know. And I was like, this is a reclamation.
It is.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm glad we talked about that because yeah, it's a slang word. It was a
Yeah.
propaganda word to demonize Black and brown people who used the plant. I mean, they would say more, but like statistically, at least we know now, Black and brown and white people all use it the same amount.
Right.
Actually, I think
Right.
white people are now using it slightly more. Yeah, that is, that's, it's a, I, most people don't know the history of that word. But I love that you're putting that on your platform and you're talking about that. It's so important. Also, what you're saying, the power of your dollar, because we've seen like a wild shift in this industry. I mean, to go within 20 to 30 years from putting the Black community in jail for
Right.
this plant and to shift then to having white businessmen make billions of dollars. Like yeah, there's definitely that's not good work and that's not the spirit of the cannabis plant. So I think
Hmm.
the dollar is really important and I love that point and I just want to emphasize that. Know who you're supporting with this plant. Yeah. Look for minority owned dispensaries, people who are growing it, people who have transferred from the legacy market because in the
Right.
legacy market, you were putting your life on the line.
Right.
Like that's serious work.
Yeah.
That's so serious, and a lot of people went to jail for it. A lot of people are still in jail for it. So,
Hmm.
how do we take a little bit of that all the money that's there and give it to the people who have worked really hard and risked a lot so we can smoke a joint on the beach in LA?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you for touching on all of that. I think it's
Hmm.
really important and it's part of really knowing the or looking at this plant as a spiritual substance is knowing the
Hmm.
history and the darkness of it. And also, yeah, I just think the wellness industry needs more equity and inclusivity. It's becoming
Definitely.
incredibly difficult to access. Like yoga
Yeah.
classes are like $40 now. That's not attainable for everyone.
Right. I had a lot of like older white men try to give me business advice, like, Darrien, you could be charging X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. Like, I would rather make it accessible than and feel like I'm impacting people in like a genuine way rather than like my bank account rising. I feel like that would completely take out like the mission, like the intentionality in it. So I'm always going to strive to keep it accessible for people.
Amazing. Amazing. Let's continue to do that. That's such a potent part of just this plant. I don't feel like we talk about it enough on this podcast. So thank you for being open and sharing and
Good.
just in general. It's super important. Okay. Well, moving on from that, it's like that's like the dark shadow, but you can't have light without shadow. I want to talk
Exactly.
more about the light of this plant. And I
Yes.
really think the light comes from its feminine essence.
Mm.
You have such a potent and distinct and incredible feminine wisdom. So I would be curious, like, how do you define or experience the feminine in your life, in your work, in the plant, just in general?
Oh, I love this question. I feel very feminine and like very embodied within my femininity. And I love feminine energy. As I've gotten older, I've like grown even more into like really loving feminine energy. And I feel that the only way that I feel like I can genuinely tap into my femininity is by having a balance within my masculinity. And I feel like I perceive that in a way of like femininity being very like in the receiving era and the masculinity being very like going and getting it. And I think that it's important to have the balance of both in life, but I feel like femininity is more than just like having my nails done or my makeup on. It's really opening up space for like the divine to flow through me. And then I feel like that the opening up is I feel like the feminine, and I feel like taking that energy that is flowing through me and like channeling it, the channeling of it is the masculine. And I feel like that's what creates that like toroidal field and that flow and that synergy and energy that like moves me through my life and places me in positions and like moments that I feel like I'm able to effectively carry out my mission.
Receiving. Yes. The masculine is the go. The feminine is the be still. And yeah, I also love that you're like femininity is not just painted nails. It's not there's yeah, it's a fun art. It's a fun construct to share with people who are not be
Mhm.
used to using or hearing those terms, but it's an energy. And um cannabis is a feminine plant. Like, it's quite literally a female plant. Like, we talk about this in the very first episode with Tina, but it also has a very feminine energy. It brings you into the receiving. Listening helps slow you down. It helps you drop into a creative state. It actually makes you not want to read your emails. To not
Right.
like, it pulls you away from that forward-leaning vector, that, like,
Yeah.
masculine state that, like, the world is always in. Like, we're usually in a more, like, masculine pace just because our society is a capitalistic hustle
Right.
culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I've learned a lot about from Tina actually is like the feminizing of consciousness. And it's
Mhm.
this kind of rebalancing of society in our global consciousness. So I'd be curious, how do you think cannabis specifically is helping to feminize consciousness? And like, why do you think that's important?
Yeah, I think very similarly to what you shared, Lexi, as far as just reminding people that they don't have to be so much in their doing, that it's okay to simply exist in the beingness. And I feel that beingness is very closely paired to femininity when you even just see like hetero dynamics where the woman is usually staying home and the man is going out and getting it, right? Whereas I feel like within an embodied space within smoking, I feel like it really allows you to sit back, relax, allow things to come to you, allow for your body to just for your even your own internal consciousness to present itself to you and to be within that mode of just being. I feel like the masculine energy is very doing. And I think it's vital for everybody to experience that essence of what it means to be a human being and to live within your
Mm,
beingness. So I think that's how cannabis reminds people to be within the feminizing of their consciousness.
amazing. Yes. Human beings. We're not human doings.
No.
Yeah. What do you feel like the world is being like? What do you think the world is being asked to heal or to do? Is it more
Mm,
of being in the being right now? Like on a collective consciousness? How do you think, like, what do you think could really help us right now?
yeah, I think that I genuinely feel like the only way for us to connect with others is for us to have a connection to ourselves. And I feel as though we've gotten so far away from our connection to ourselves that it's almost like impossible to really connect with somebody else because we're playing in our minds what we're going to say or what we need to do. I feel like we're very rarely present with somebody else. So it's harder to even have that source of empathy. So I think that what we really need to do is have more moments of just sitting with who we are, what we really want, what our own thoughts are, because we're constantly being bombarded by external dialogue and being able to just take a moment to like shed the layers of what's really actually not our internal voice or our internal truth is really important. I think that even just people, as cliche as it may sound, even people just sitting and taking like a 2-minute meditation moment, I think could drastically raise the vibration of the world.
Yes, meditate more. Okay, well, you're clearly on your dharmic path then, because that's what you're helping people do. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, just 2 minutes every day. Let's start
Yeah.
school with that, and like we used to make everyone start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's just start with 2 minutes of Silence.
Right, right. Do they still do the Pledge of Allegiance? I've been wondering that. They don't do it anymore? Okay. I was, like, thinking if I were to walk through a school and see everybody doing the Pledge of Allegiance, how, like,
I think that
Matrix moment that would be. I couldn't even imagine.
I'm sure there's schools that still do it, but I don't think you can in public schools. I don't know. I don't wanna speak to
Oh,
policy.
good to know.
It's the norm
Yeah.
anymore, but
I was
who
like,
knows when I was in school. Okay, one last question. What is something that you wish everyone knew about cannabis? Like, if you had a microphone and you could scream out to the world and be like, "This message is so important," what would it be?
it would be definitely that cannabis is a plant that is here as a gift for you to learn who you are and to not only connect with yourself, but to connect with others, to connect with everything, to connect with source, like the force that created all of us. Yeah.
Amazing. That's beautiful. Yeah. I have an idea. Tell me if you're open to it. Just talking about how important it is or it could be or how powerful it could be if everyone meditated for 2 minutes. Would you be willing to guide us through a 2-minute meditation right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, what an honor. Okay, great.
Okay. All right. So you're just going to go ahead and get in a relaxed position. Relax your shoulders, settle into your seat, gently close your eyes, and just begin with a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Just taking a moment to see how your body feels that just exists here. Slowing your breath to feel the way that your chest rises, all softening the weight of your shoulders as you feel the air gently going into your being. Feel the temperature flowing into your body and transforming through your exhale, taking a full breath in to fill up the capacity of your being and a full breath out, relaxing into who you are here as you settle your mind into space. Continue to breathe in the atmosphere and give back to the atmosphere. Taking a moment to feel your fingertips, the symmetry between your toes, the balance between your shoulders and lungs, eyes and nose. Take one more breath in to the midline of your body, fully aligning you with the essence of who you are, and a powerful breath out as you gently begin to open your eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your voice is incredible. Even there, what a centering. Meditation is so potent and important with or without cannabis.
Hmm. Thank you for
Yeah,
inviting me to share that.
amazing. Yeah, I didn't know. Didn't want to put you on the spot, but it felt right.
Great.
Great. Well, Darrien, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you and your classes and your offerings?
So you can find me at Marijuana Meditations on Instagram, on YouTube, www.marijuanameditations.com. And I have like a newsletter that goes out every month, calendar that I post at the beginning of each month. And once you've like RSVP to one event, you will most likely get reminders of the upcoming event. So once you're locked in, you'll be in the community.
Amazing. Yes, go give her a follow. Um, you're such a light. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for your time here. And I hope to see you in person in Los Angeles soon.
I hope to see you too. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. This has been so, so lovely.
Amazing.
Don't forget to subscribe to support this plant-powered exploration. And if you have any questions, are curious, or have ideas for collaborations, give me a follow on Instagram at HigherLexi. I also want to remind you that we're not making any medical recommendations or claims on this podcast, and if you do choose to explore cannabis, please do so mindfully. And until next time, keep the vibe high, friends.